Hello, everyone, and welcome back to RHAP. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I'm here today with a whole host of guests that I am very excited to bring to you because we are going to be talking about Jet Lag the Game, Season 13, the Schengen Showdown. And as you can see if you're watching this video, we have the whole crew. We have Tom, we have Sam, we have Adam, we have Ben, and of course I am joined by my co-host Sasha. Sasha, how are you?
I'm locked in. I'm ready to go.
Ready to go. I'm glad we've tried locking in, but I want to let you all introduce yourself. Tom, how are you doing?
Fine. This is my last official jet lag duty. After this, I am done. I'm out of here. I'm somewhat uncomfortable with having been elevated to like the top of this, like the top right panel, away from the three on the bottom here. So I'm going to hand over to the folks who actually run the show.
I believe that you were the first to arrive, and that is why you have this position. Yes, I also like that we are an official jet lag duty. I think that that is written in the contract when you go on jet lag now, right? I think that's right, Sam, isn't that?
Yeah, it's buried somewhere in those thousands of pages.
How are you doing, Sam?
Pretty good, barely conscious, but that's all right.
A vibe.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just coming off of a weekend of like food poisoning or something. So
You always get food poisoning. You're
constantly being poisoned, dog.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which one of you is poisoning him?
Look, I also am shocked by this because I feel like Sam, like compared to both me and Ben, you're the least adventurous eater of the three of us, and yet you get the most food
correlation,
poisoning.
Causation, all the way around kind of thing.
Well, you just heard him there as well. Adam, how you doing? You're not poisoned, right?
I'm not poisoned. I was recently quite sick as well. Not food poisoning. Listeners of the Layover podcast will note I was not there for the last two episodes. I don't know if you guys explained this, but I showed up to the recording and my voice was so messed up from being sick that Sam and Ben were like, dude, go back to bed. Like,
yeah, he showed up. He was like, I'm fine to podcast. And you were like, no, you are not.
Yeah. I mean, like to say it was just us being really nice and telling Adam that he should really prioritize his rest. But at least one part of it was that he sounded pretty disgusting.
It was a phlegmy.
Look, it worked out great. I was like, there's nothing that I would love more than to go to bed. But, my sense of responsibility to the listeners of the Layover podcast, the number 2 jet lag recap podcast, is so great.
Well, he never sounds disgusting. Ben is here as well. How you doing, Ben?
I'm good. I sound perfect, and I'm completely unpoisoned, and my body is a temple. And I'm ready to talk about season 13 of Jet Lag the Game. You caught us amidst the editing of season 14, and so I'm fully in that headspace. I gotta come back.
Yes.
No, it gets confusing. We were talking today about season 15. We're editing season 14. We just finished releasing season 13, and we're about to release season 13.5. So the numbers are sort of really all over the place.
Yes, we're living in the past for you, but the present for us, I guess. So first of all, awesome season. When we were talking about the season, especially those first 3 episodes, we were like, are these 3 of like the best jet lag episodes ever? Because there was so much in there. How do you guys feel about the season as a whole now that it's over? What are your general thoughts?
I feel good about it. I think I think that the ending was a little wonky, obviously. But I think an interesting ending. And I also think, and maybe this is just cope, I think it's important that every once in a while you have a little bit of a wonky ending because it really proves that the show is real. I think that if every time we had a super, perfect, like as if it was scripted ending, then like, there's something that starts to feel weird about that.
I
And
think
I
I said
still
those
thought
exact words
that-
in the recap for the finale.
Oh, well, and thank you. And maybe that's cope, but also I think but I still felt like the finale was interesting. And, I was very pleased that at the end of episode 5, I think that the majority opinion that I was seeing was still that people thought Sam and Tom would win.
Yeah.
And so I was pleased with that. I was pleased that we kept people guessing. I think that we don't overstay our welcome. I saw some people be like, well, why didn't they keep going? It's like, do you really want to watch a whole day with no stakes at all that, is just people going through the motions? Like, that doesn't seem like that'd be very fun to watch.
From an outsider's perspective, I am really glad that the ending was clean. Like, it could have been this, like, yes, it was a little wonky, but it could have been that we could mathematically have made it over the line and there'd have just been an increasingly desperate kind of winding down. We at least were able to put a line on it.
Well, let me tell you, as somebody that spends a lot of time watching the show Big Brother, sometimes the season is basically over and you still have to watch like a month and a half of one person just continue to dominate until the end. So yeah, not bad to clean that up. Tom, I did want to ask you specifically that, we talked in the preseason and you said that one thing you learned was that you learned why these guys weren't running all the time, because it's just very tiring. But Tom, I feel like throughout the season, I saw you running quite a lot.
Well, yeah, I'm paired with someone who literally runs ultra marathons, who would get back to the hotel and we go our separate ways, and then would then post like a 7-8 kilometer Strava run. Like, I am enthusiastic about playing anything like this, and there are moments in games where seconds or minutes can count, and we saw that, right? And the which challenge was it with the jumping jacks, Sam?
That was Czechia.
Czechia. All right.
Yeah.
We saw that with just happening to get it back in time for a train. Like, if we had slowed down a bit more, if we hadn't power walked back towards the station, if we'd have spent a bit more time just going, all right, let's rest, we wouldn't have made that train. The whole game would have been different. Yeah.
And you flip that onto Ben Adams' side, and the entire course of the season could have completely changed if they had missed that train to IKEA by less than a minute.
Oh, I mean, we made it on that train and the doors closed, I think 5 seconds later.
So just
closed on us.
Literally one slow down on the run to the platform, and might not have completely changed the season, but certainly would have extended it another half day or so. But yeah, Tom also seemed to like to just run.
Yeah, because Tom, you were dragging Sam a lot of times. You were like, run,
I think it's more likely that Sam happened to stay behind with the camera more often. I think that's more a camera angle and edit thing.
Hashtag content. We love that. Tom, I also had a few preseason questions. You spoke when y'all were speaking with Taran, actually. You shared that, right? When you first got the draft, you were like, I don't know, is this going to work? Is it too simple? You said, hey, it's good. And it does work. I'd love to know now that you can be a little bit more free. We know what's going on. We know what happened. Would there be any changes that you as a game maker would want to do, would have done, would suggest?
Not off the top of my head.
Oh, I like
But I have less experience in designing this show. So actually, I'm going to bounce that to the other three, because I think, knowing what you know about seasons to come and seasons gone, I could suggest things, but I wouldn't know if they'd work. I think it's going to be those three who know the answer to that.
I know personally, I think Ben, Adam, and I might disagree on this, or at least the extent to which. I was always probably the strongest advocate for the strongest level of restriction on flight budgets. And I think that it turned out to be less restrictive than at least I had necessarily expected. But I think we debriefed on this and we agreed that um, it was a little bit less restrictive than we expected.
Yeah, that was the only thing I could think that I would consider changing. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think I frankly I think we settled on 4,000. I think it worked fine, and I think that like fundamentally we decided to err on the side of like more flight budget rather than less flight budget because the alternative was that like if we really undershot it, people could get like really stranded
Yeah.
somewhere, or they would completely refuse to go to the further afield locations, and we really wanted to encourage that. I think like
Yeah.
ultimately we could have maybe been a little more restrictive, but honestly, like people took a lot of trains, and like we made a lot of decisions based on not wanting to waste money. So
Well, I'll also
Yeah.
say, like, for what it's worth, like, we didn't do the final day. Like, if we had
Mhm.
done the final day, we would have run out of flight budget.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
and it is worth keeping in mind, like, you guys were restricted by flight budget when
Yeah.
you
That's what I was
were,
gonna bring up. Mhm.
in the
Yeah.
end, like, you could not take several of the flight, I think it was twice that you wanted to take a flight and then you didn't because you were going to run out of money. So I don't know that I totally feel, I mean, I do agree with Ben that, like, we ultimately decided to err on the side of a little bit more money because I think that, like, if you shot it too low, it was just going to be really lame if it was just like, well, I can't get anywhere for the next 7 hours because of the budget. But I do think, like, maybe we were a little above, but like, if we had gone to that final day, I think we pretty much would have reached the end of it. And it was starting to get restrictive. And I think, especially if we had gotten to the final day, it would have really started to get restrictive.
Yeah, I mean, I think we achieved most of the intended result, which is like we wanted, early game, it had the effect of like you just erred on the side of caution in terms of like you take trains because like you don't know how much of a flight budget. It had the intended effect that's like kind of a production thing where like the instances of us being kind of priced out were just where flights were, you know, exponentially more expensive because it's often like the last seat. So it successfully excluded that in the way that was intended. I just think that like personally, I actually think that our strategy that we sort of shifted to of speed running probably with good flight connections would have worked. And I don't think it actually necessarily should have. Like, I feel like if that had played out, as I think it would have, assuming good connections, it would have led to boring gameplay and people feeling like it was a bit of a, kind of an exploit.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question
Mhm.
because I talked about this on the finale recap, but I knew it was going to be the finale going in because I listened to the Lateral podcast that you guys are on. You're like, I think the finale is coming up. I was like, wait, what?
We got that episode out a week earlier than we expected to, and I don't know if it was crossed wires or anything, but I don't know if that was a deliberate placement or whatever. Apologies if anyone got a minor spoiler off that. We tried to time it right, but between the Nebula output and the YouTube output and everything, it just.
Yeah.
I will divert that question to producer David, who is not on this call.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I think it was fine, especially if you're watching on YouTube, you knew anyway. But because I knew it was going to be, or at least I had an idea that it was going to be the finale, because I did think, what if they were? This doesn't seem like a finale. Is this a mistake? And so I was theorizing about the different ways that it could be the finale as I was watching it. And one of the ways I was theorizing it would be the finale would be like, okay, what if Sam and Tom succeed in this plan and the rest of the season is just them like hopping from country to
That would
country?
suck.
They might just montage that and like I don't know, you know what I mean? And so given that you think it might have actually worked if things had lined up properly, does that like how does that inform how you feel about the game design? Do you think that if you were to do something like this again, you would put something in place to prevent something like that from working?
I mean, I think that like the important thing is just like the viability of the most number of options, probably. Like I don't think that strategy, having a scenario where it was viable, is necessarily like detrimental to the game, because I would argue that like even if that would have been viable at the very end of this season in that context, that doesn't mean that it was necessarily a good idea to just like do that from the start every time. And like we try and focus on designing games just where like the most number of things could happen or be viable, because we don't want it to just be a rote like here's how you play this game. We kind of want to go into games being like we don't know exactly how to play them, and we're going to figure out what works best. So I don't know. I mean, I do think it would have been boring. I mean, obviously it depends how it would have played out. Like I'm sure we could have maybe done something with it in the edit, but like I don't know that in and of itself is a huge problem with the game design.
Well, the other thing that I'll say is like, I think that we had already done the most important thing to do to make that not completely boring and bad, which is that teams are only allowed to hold one plane ticket at a time. And so even if you had the budget, even if you found the right connections, there's no guarantee that when you land, that flight is still going to be available, that you're not going to get delayed, that you're going to be able to be on it. And we saw exactly that happen to both of us. We saw that you guys had a plan that fell apart and you had to pivot because the flight you had wanted got sold out when you got there. We saw that happen with us where our flight disappeared. And I think that any plan that relied really heavily on a specific tight itinerary of flight hopping was likely to run into drama for exactly that reason. And that would have made it more interesting.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the challenges, because I think that they are a huge part of what made the season really fun. And there are a few obvious differences in how you did the challenges this season to previous seasons. I think we've already talked a decent amount about how you didn't know the challenges ahead of time. But in particular, I'd like to know from each of you, like, which was your favorite challenge? Like, which was the one that you thought worked the best that you didn't know it ahead of time? And are there any that you felt like didn't work as well, not knowing it ahead of time? Tom, what do you think?
Oh, my favorite easily was Waffle Pong, because it was the first challenge, and it didn't make the edit. I don't know if it'll be in the outtakes, but there is a moment as I'm walking away from that challenge where I just turned back to Sam and I'm like, oh, I'm on jet lag. I'm on the show. This is a thing that is happening. And I'm just kind of excited that, oh, all right, I'm in this world now. So that will always kind of hold dear for me.
I really liked your disappointment that you didn't manage to film yourself eating the waffle.
Genuinely annoyed. I did not. Not on camera is the fact that wall did not smell great. Like, I'm pretty sure the waffle did not touch the wall. I'm pretty sure there was plastic there, but not 100% confident that the waffle did not touch the wall. Sam,
proximity to the wall was
waffle.
not great.
So this is how you're getting poisoned. You're doing
Sam didn't eat the waffle. Sam was like, I was like, I will happily eat the waffle, and Sam was like, I'm not. That's fine. That's on you.
He has been known to eat
I thought
cards,
it was
though.
a risk mitigation strategy for only one of us to eat the waffle.
If someone gets sick, do you just pause the game?
Well, we didn't start when Tom was sick this season.
Fair.
I mean, we've never
I think that if
That happened well enough in advance.
Yeah.
If somebody got sick in the middle of the game in a way where they
Right.
couldn't continue, I believe that we would pause and resume later.
Never happened though.
I think
Never will.
that's and it never will. I think that is that's actually in the rules. I think
It is in our
officially
rules
is
documents. Yeah.
but it's more vaguely worded. It's like, if for any reason there are health and safety concerns, like the producers may pause gameplay to be resumed at a later time, I think is like the wording in the rules.
Be interesting.
Yeah.
I think that happened on the Amazing Race season during COVID, actually, that they had to stop down and then resume filming like way later.
Didn't they start like a year later or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Now that would be weird. I mean, we've talked about this for, well, I guess no. Wait, well, no, forgetting my timelines.
Just don't try and figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. Never. Well, that will become relevant for a future layover podcast.
Yeah.
All right.
I will say it. it would be interesting to play this as a summer season.
Right.
If we had to stop down for 6 months or something like that, and suddenly the game day becomes longer, that would massively change the strategy.
Flowers probably would have been easier, or maybe
Well,
harder.
I don't
because
know.
it was
The
Probably
damn
not
further away
really
from
Christmas
Christmas
rose.
roses.
There's a whole set of evening flights we'd have had access to.
Yeah.
Fair.
Sam, how about you? What about the which challenges did you felt like worked the best, and were there any that you felt like didn't work as well?
I felt like in terms of like kind of more so our side of the challenge versus the entertainment value of a challenge, the what we did in Czechia, again, it was Czechia or Czech Republic, whatever. That one was like so much more challenging than I necessarily expected it to be. But on the other hand, I think it was great in that it was like it felt completely within the realm of possibility and yet very challenging, and we ended up succeeding. So for our side, I thought it was a very satisfying experience because I was kind of genuinely surprised at the end when we not only succeeded but succeeded so well. So that one was fun because like I think it comes across partially, but like we were genuinely struggling to keep on top of it, and it's amazing that we did.
It was a very entertaining one.
I know, and y'all screaming at each other, right? To be like, I can't do both. I can't tell
To be
time.
fair, I
and
can't do both.
No, I couldn't either. There's no way.
Yeah. Well, it's very stressful because, like, if you lose that count, you lose that count for good. You kind of only got one shot.
As Adam later pointed out to us, we could have just like used pen and paper.
Yeah, it would have been smart because honestly, the most difficult part for me was like you have to keep in mind the minute count, like how many steps you've done to lead up to a minute, and how many minutes have passed by. And like the third thing that you're doing, like 20 questions, it's kind of just a lot to keep track. At least for me.
I think trying to name 100 women without writing any of them down to remember which ones you said
we
already.
could have written them down.
Yeah.
That was. I did that challenge myself, like with the pressure off later, and my time was 13 minutes. So I feel a little bit better about that.
There you go. How about you, Adam?
I mean, I really enjoyed the challenge. It was very fun for me, like not knowing what any of the challenges would be. I felt like it added a real dimension of just excitement and nervousness and stuff for us because we've never done it before. I mean, I'll say, to Amy's credit, I think we told her we wanted about a 70% success rate on challenges. And I think that's almost exactly what we ended up with, which I do think that you got it. You got to hand it to her on that one. I thought there were a lot of fun challenges. I'll say that, I really love the blindfolded Legos one. Just think it's a really nice challenge. I mean, I think that it and the IKEA one, they both have the slight weakness of like they rely on certain stores being open, which is always a bit of a weakness that certain challenges have. But otherwise, like, blind Lego is great. It's very deeply tied to Denmark thematically. I think that's really fun. I think that it's like something that requires a really interesting level of strategy and execution on, which is always really compelling. It's like, how much you think about it, thinking about it in the right way, putting in the time to get the right set and really work that through, like pays big dividends. And then also the execution of it is, a combination of like skill, and communication and all these things. And so like, I think that, things where you can really, your success or failure will really depend on whether or not you earned it. I feel like whether you thought it through the right way and you prepped the right way and whatever, like, I think that makes it really satisfying. I also think that one is proved to be a great challenge by the fact that one team failed and one team succeeded it. It's like, it proves it can go both ways, right? Like it's totally doable under the right circumstances. Under the wrong circumstances, it's very hard. And so I think that shows that it's a good challenge as well. I think like, for related reasons, I think that, and again, I'm not throwing shade on Amy, who I thought did a great job. I thought one of the weaker challenges, in my opinion, was like the flower one and the the Italy one. Like I think the Italy
I
one
love the
especially,
flower one.
the Italy one was especially luck based. You know, it was just sort of like, well, are they going to roll a good number or not? And I think that leads to a bit of a less satisfying feel. I think it's fun to have some things that are total luck and roll of the dice, but given how substantial the challenges were, I think there's a little bit of like a, oh well, they rolled a 4, so it's over now.
Well,
And it
Aaron,
becomes either
Aaron did the
trivial to
3,
do the
right?
challenge.
I did try to attempt a 3 on the podcast, and I
succeeded?
concluded it is
Yeah.
possible.
Okay.
He did.
okay.
He fell once,
well, yeah,
and it was very funny.
It took 2 tries.
I think it's a thing where it's like, unless you're forced to do 3, the challenge is either trivially easy or it's impossible.
Yeah.
And I think that we tend away from challenges where, like, there are many times where we talk about challenges and it's like, this challenge will either be impossible or very easy. Like, sometimes it's like, you know, if the challenge is like similar to the flower thing, like, go buy this specific item. It's like, well, this will either be trivially easy because it'll just be there and you'll go get it, or it'll be impossible because you can't get it. And it's more interesting for challenges to exist in that middle ground where it's like, well, this is possible if you prep the right way and strategize the right way and execute well, versus like, due to circumstances completely beyond your control, this will either be completely no problem or totally impossible.
Yeah. Ben, any other challenges you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, shout out to Amy. She did very, very
My
good.
queen.
I think that the only other one that I think is worth, like that has another quality to it that I think is worth pointing out is the Austrian challenge, the one where you played the instrument that you made. Just because that one, it has a rare quality about it that we try and capture in a lot of things and often fail to, where there were genuinely several different ways of doing it, and your creativity in executing it mattered a lot, and like it was truly quite open-ended. And I do think that like with a show like this, with a show like Jet Lag, like one comparative advantage we have over something like Survivor, which has many, many comparative advantages over us, like they can put more money than we'll ever have into the building of one challenge and it'll be awesome. But like we can at least, you know, when we're out in the world, like we can have these challenges that feel really open-ended, that feel like they have this sense of like, I'm out in the world and I could do this anyway and I could approach this anyway. And I think that is something that is harder to do on something that feels more produced, like a show like Survivor or whatever. And so I like that about that challenge a lot.
And to be fair, with Survivor, I don't know how you feel, Taran. Maybe for Big Brother, for sure, is that when we see a challenge, we kind of know the top 3, like who's gonna win most likely.
Don't get me started
Because
on challenge equity and
yeah,
Big
I
Brother
know.
and
I was like,
Survivor.
I will not do that. But you know, even if it's like you ride a banana on Big Brother, we still know who's most likely gonna win. And I don't think that happens in Jet Lag, which is exciting, and why we actually want to talk about the challenges, which is not what we do in any other show that we cover. But speaking of challenges, I also wanted to know, were there any challenges that you can share with us that didn't get, you know, open, the envelopes didn't get open, but you think would have played well?
Well, we've done some of that on our own Jet Lag Recap podcast
Yes,
coming
indeed.
out this Wednesday.
Everyone
probably
check
do
that out.
Yeah, we could add a couple.
Are there any
Are
others
we,
that you wanted to throw out
Is
there?
the website back up? I think Amy took
web-
it down.
The
didn't she?
website is back up,
yeah.
at least for now.
Let me just
Well, I want, like, if I was Amy and I had challenges that you didn't do, I'd be like, I'm not telling you. I want to use it.
Yeah, that's
Well, that's
what,
the thing.
why I
Part of it is
asked
that
it
we
that
want
way.
to. No, she took it back down. It's gone now.
Oh man. There was one I remember that we didn't mention on the Q&A that I think we can talk about.
Sure.
Which was it was the Spain challenge, which I feel bad. It had a whole video filmed by this other creator for us, and it was going to be very involved. But I was reading the challenge and I was like, how would you do this? It was based off of the Spanish Armada, which had 150 ships and 18,000 men or something. And Amy wanted us to make 150 floating vessels that could carry 18,000 things. 18,000 grains of rice. And none of the grains of rice could get wet. And they all had to be like floating for a minute or something.
Wow.
That would have been a tough one. Would have been a tough one.
Well, something about the challenges that we noted on the recaps was that this was, I think, pretty easily the most stressful season of jet lag. Watching the challenges.
That might just have been me. That might just have been me.
Well, I think, you were set up a little bit, Tom, because I think these challenges were more stressful than they normally are in how high
Yeah,
the
but the
failure
game
rate
day
was.
ended at 5:30 p.m. I think if I'd have been doing that 14 hours a day, I'd have had a breakdown. But it wasn't that bad.
But even for the viewers, right? Like these challenges, I had multiple points in the season, like when I was watching the make your own instruments one, when I was watching the like mini museum one, it was like, is somebody going to stop in that time period, in that spot for 5 seconds? Or I was just like, I can't even, like, I have to sit here and wait another minute until I figure out if somebody's going to stop. That's something I hadn't really felt a ton before in jet. Like, obviously we've been tense watching various things. There have been some challenges, especially like Australia, where you're a little bit tense watching the challenge, but this one felt like really ramped up. How much of that was something intentional that you thought was going to happen ahead of time that you maybe put into the edit? And how do you feel about it? Does this feel like maybe you've unlocked something that you will, like a new tool that you'll be able to use now in the future?
I think it's largely kind of, I don't know if we were necessarily aiming for that as the direct result, but it's sort of a byproduct of the direct result that we were looking for, which was more or less just, an engaging, entertaining show. Because I think part of what made it so tense is that, like, it was extremely hard for us in advance to, like, there were so many different dimensions to the challenges this time, in that, like, on average, they were skill-based ones with a high chance element. So like there were pretty few that were like fully chance, and there were pretty few that were fully skill. Not none, but like there were a lot that were a combination of both. And what that means is, like, when it's fully chance, you honestly don't need to be that worried because there's not that much you can do to affect it. When it's fully skill, it's a little bit less stressful because it's all within your control, or at least it's more within your control. When it's a mix of both, I feel like it's more stressful because, like, you can argue that the Angry Birds challenge is fully skill, but, I think there's a lot of luck involved there, considering that, it's challenging to hit. And even when you do hit, it doesn't always fall. So, like, that's clearly stressful. And then I think the other layer that we had this season is that, like, this is an argument that I've tried to make. I don't know if how the season turned out really backs it up that much, but, like, there are scenarios where spending too long on a challenge is not the right thing to do strategically. I don't think we saw a lot of situations in which that necessarily actually occurred, but I think it was not none, but pretty few. But I think it was far more theoretically possible for that to be true than it turned out to be true in reality, if that makes sense. So there's also the layer of, like, you potentially, like, I think you can make the argument that, like, Ben and Adam spent too long on their Switzerland challenge, for example. And it's not like that necessarily in that moment led to a big downside, but, like, in another version how this game played out, you could trace it all the way back to that day and say, hey, if they had spent less time then, they could have claimed an additional country, and that might have made the difference at the end. So
Yeah, actually,
all of that combined. Well, yeah, all that combined basically just meant that, like, I think it was really hard for us to feel like we were nailing any given challenge because it was just so hard to know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I did think it was the right call in the moment when you were both competing for the make your own instrument challenge. When you and Tom were like, maybe we just let them go for it because there's such a high failure rate or chance that we just win it if they lose. And, if we try it and fail, then that gives them more time because they'll know we have failed. I thought that was a good idea. It didn't work out, but
I mean, I think the other part of it is, I mean, I think the real answer to your question, like why was it so high tension, is the boring answer of like, I think it was a really nice combination of pacing and stakes. Which, you know, I think it just sort of speaks to like, you know, partially I think we had well-designed, you know, I think it's partially we had well-designed challenges that we've talked about. I think a big part of it too is like the pacing and the stakes were really nice of like, the stakes were really high every time. We understood those stakes very clearly, right? It was like, if you fail this, it could potentially lead to a 2-point swing. Like each challenge, it felt very significant, especially because we had seen steals. We knew how impactful those were, right? We understood that the stakes were really high on every attempt, right? Whether it was to lock or to steal, those stakes were super high. I think the other thing that was nice was like, there was a great pace to the challenges where, you know, okay, well, if you fail this or if you succeeded, it's like, you're not going to be trying another challenge till you get to another country. So, you know, there was always a lot of great build up to a challenge in a way that I think was really nice. There's all the travel to get there. You really build up to it. I think that like, you know, Australia you mentioned, which I think is maybe the season where we've had the most stakes. You know, we've had the most tension in challenges before. I think like there is some great tension in that, but I think part of the difference is like we had more control over the stakes. So I think we were generally a little more comfortable. It's like we would wager more if we felt more comfortable. We could reduce our wager if we felt less comfortable. So like we were able to be more in control of the risk and stakes, which I think led to a bit less nervousness overall, and a bit less stress. And the other thing being that like, well, if you fail this challenge, you might try another challenge a few minutes afterwards to try to make up for it, versus like, you know, in this case, it's like, if you fail this challenge, you can never reattempt it. This country will, you will never be able to lock this country, and they might come here and you now have to leave and go to another country. And I think that it was that natural building of pacing and stakes that just, I was very pleased with the feel of it.
Well, it's also, and this is, I mean, maybe getting a little bit in the weeds, but like there's a sort of a distinct psychological effect about the stakes of the challenges being more theoretical here, where you locking or failing to lock a country could be the thing that completely loses you the game in any instance, and you don't actually know what it's going to be, but you're always, at least the way that we operate, going to assume the worst case scenario. And so when you fail to lock a country, every single time you think, this could have lost me the entire game, which is interesting. So much, you know, attention I think is paid to the Finland challenge and like the failure there, but actually that challenge didn't matter at all.
No, didn't make a blind bit of difference.
We were never going to go to Finland, whether they locked it or not. But like in the moment, it feels like, oh, this completely screws us. So I do think that has an effect as well.
yeah, and I think as a viewer too, like the success or failure of a challenge will probably have an immediate impact on what you're going to watch next. Like if you fail to lock this country, that means that, you know, Adam and Ben are about to change their plans and start following you to try to steal it, or vice versa. They might go in a different direction if you do lock this country. And so, yeah, I think it is also like as a viewer, kind of like, oh well, but I have a vested interest in which way this goes, depending on what I want to see next, which I think is really interesting. One of my favorite parts of this season was the dynamic between Tom and Sam, all season long. Because I loved so much, Tom, how invested you were, and how like frustrated you'd get, it, like, you know, especially with like Angry Birds, and Sam, I thought was such a good like partner, sort of like taking a step back a little bit and being like the chill relationship. And the dynamic between the two of you, with you being like, Sam, we have to do this, and he'd be like, yeah, I guess so. Was so good. Tom, how did you find working? Like, what was the experience working with Sam on the team together?
So I just cut off 3 potential comedy answers in my head, which were just incredibly rude to Sam. None of them are true. I just realised we're recording this as live, and we couldn't go back and edit the joke out afterwards. It was lovely. It was professional. Got the job done. Talked to each other. Strategized. Held the camera for each other. Like, really, really good to work with. And it was really nice to have someone like, cameras are off at 5:30. Right, we're going our separate ways. I need time to decompress. He needs time to go run somewhere. I think a real mismatch.
Literally.
Yeah, I think a real mismatch would have been if one of us was like, "All right, let's hang out and get dinner somewhere. Like, let's do what Ben and Adam do," and the other hadn't. And equally, I think if I were paired with either Ben or Adam, it might have seemed a bit rude or standoffish to go, "All right, I'm done, see you later." But I think Sam and I mean, tell me if I'm wrong there, Sam. I may have been completely misreading you, but it was quite nice to just go,
The whole
yeah,
time,
cameras
Sam
off,
was
I'll
just
see
like,
you.
damn, this guy doesn't want to hang out with me.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person, what their preferences are after a full day of filming, but I think we were pretty aligned on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tom was a different level of practice.
You can say
in terms
highly
of-
strung. It's okay. You can say highly strung.
Well, I was going to get to that, but I was talking first about like you clearly have like so much experience filming in the field, and I think it was clear how you were like injecting some, Tom Scott, the YouTube channel energy into it at times.
Yeah, well, someone won't hold the camera at a straight line. Someone goes for the Dutch angle all the time.
Yeah, it looks great. But
And then, as I understand it, normally gets squared up by Adam in post. But
Yeah.
no, Adam's the one who always frames shots like 45 degrees off because he's so confident in the ability to correct it in post.
We have a great post team. We do.
Yeah,
they
but
do
like
great
just
work.
because they can tilt correct your shot by 45 degrees doesn't mean they should.
We're
I
keeping
feel like
them- we're
I
keeping
have
them
gotten.
working.
I feel like I have gotten. At this point, I think I do some of the nicest framing that we have.
Ooh.
Actually,
You
I'll
often do, but it's often after. And look, I have nothing to back this up because we're only showing the post edit stuff to the audience, but they do nothing to see all these shots that start out like completely lopsided.
But it's
But
all
no,
about
it's
where
true.
we
The
end up.
end
Artistic
result,
choice.
the end result works. But yeah, because like Tom was practiced when he gave his his summaries of what just happened or what's about to happen. But also, I don't know to what extent this was Tom just being nervous versus Tom trying to inject his producer brain. But Tom certainly was. He conveyed movements in the game as big, basically, if that makes sense. It's like you were making big conclusions early on, which led to it feeling very dramatic.
I'll take that. That seems like a good thing overall because you can always cut them out in the edit.
Yeah, I mean it's useful in the edit, but it's like I don't know. At times I felt like I had to reassure you that like Tom, we're still in the game.
It did feel like, and I think this is true for both teams, that we were constantly on the verge of going, "Oh, this is really bad. This is all over." Like we thought, or at least I thought, that Ben and Adam were much further ahead than they actually were throughout. And talking to Ben and Adam, it feels like you two kind of felt the same way.
I think the truth is, yeah. I mean, it was really interesting to read the fan reaction because I think that, as I noted, it seemed that the overwhelming feeling was that you guys had the upper hand for most of the season.
Hardly ever felt that way. I
And-
think the only time I felt that way was, honestly, the bit after nailing the Bratislava challenge, where we just got that sequence and everything was good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Other than that, it was like we are playing catch up.
Yeah,
I maybe felt that there
think-
were like
Go ahead,
moments
Sam.
that we were like neck and neck, but never ahead.
I think that part of it was that, Ben and I didn't know that the Netherlands challenge was likely to be impossible until we got there. So I think for a while we felt really good about that. And it turned out that actually, I mean,
You did
worked
find
out
all the elements,
incredibly
okay,
for you.
right? It was
Right.
theoretically possible.
I think we found all but one because I'd forgotten about one of them.
Okay, great.
But no, I mean, I do think it was theoretically possible in the end, but it was much more difficult than we would have guessed. So I think the truth was that what happened in the Netherlands was a great for, huge strategic boon for you guys. And we had felt like it was a big boon for us up until we realized how it was actually going to play out. But at that point, you guys had failed, I think, in both Sweden and Denmark. So when we failed that, I think we were like, well, it sucks that we failed that, but they just failed two next to each other. So we kind of felt okay about it. I think that if that hadn't happened and then we had failed the Netherlands, we really would have been like, oh, we're behind. And I think for the audience, they were like, well, Adam and Ben are going to fail the Netherlands. And given that, maybe you guys sort of are ahead of them. So I don't know. It was interesting.
Yeah, I think it plays to the strength of the game design for this season, that and in the way you guys decided to play it as well, where Ben and Adam, you guys were playing this more high risk, high reward strategy, and it was working at first. But then a few episodes in, it was like, what is the end result of this? They're still basically tied. And we know that this Netherlands thing is looming over them. And so it did feel like, even though it's been working out so far, it hasn't given them enough of a crushing advantage that it will withstand the Netherlands, potentially ruining it. And so it did feel very neck and neck. It felt very close, despite the fact that you pretty much hadn't failed a challenge until the Netherlands.
Yeah, and I think you can make an argument that I think one potential weakness with Tom and I as a team, it was this kind of the fact that I think we somewhat got in each other's heads and made ourselves feel like we were further behind than we were. And on the one hand, you could say okay, good, that's motivation, but on the other hand, I think that's part of what led to you could characterize what we the mistakes we made in Denmark and the Netherlands, in Denmark and Sweden, as essentially taking on too much risk. This is something that I think we try to talk about a lot, but it's a layer that it's hard to convey in the show itself. But it's a lot of your response to being behind is taking on more risk. You up your risk, you up your reward, and there are often ways in the game to do that. And in this case, I think the risk-taking maneuver that we did was moving on from Sweden quickly and then kind of putting ourselves in time pressure in Denmark to try to get to another country, hoping that they wouldn't follow. Because looking at that in retrospect, of course, knowing what we know now, it didn't make sense. Even not knowing what we know now, I think, I'm certainly willing to concede that I think that was a mistake, even given the info at the time. And I think part of that, again, was just we felt in order to have a shot of getting ahead or staying ahead, we had to take on risk, even when arguably we shouldn't have, especially knowing that they were, at that point, I think we knew with decent confidence that they were probably going to the Netherlands.
Yeah. Sasha, do you have
Yeah. I also wanted to know if Sam and Tom, you managed to claim Lithuania, Poland, Croatia. What would all of y'all think would have been the most likely outcome for the next day? Because both of you were going to Poland, right?
We gave a very detailed answer to this on the other Jet Lag Recap podcast.
Sasha's questions are better than mine because they're the ones that you've that were actually already addressed in a podcast that hasn't been released yet.
But also, I think the answer to a certain extent is that it's unknowable, because in this game the variables expand so quickly. You can maybe plot one or two moves ahead.
I think our general conclusion was that Adam and Ben probably still had the edge, but it was much closer to 50-50.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, have you guys seen Ludwig's Japan challenge videos?
I have. Not all of it, but I've seen bits and pieces.
So basically, he went from like the bottom tip of Japan to the top without a smartphone, no maps or anything.
Yes.
And it's very interesting, and it made me, obviously, I think he was heavily inspired by you guys to some degree. He even had a meal review segment on his thing. So I don't know if you have
Yes,
a copyright claim against
I was
him.
tagged in things
Yeah.
that were showing that where I think Michael Reeves was being like, it's the snack zone. And Ludwig was like, no, it's not the snack zone. It's not the snack zone. Something different.
But it made me think of you guys, and it made me wonder if there was a way to incorporate having zero map at all into any kind of challenge or game element to what you guys do. Have you thought about that before?
Totally.
We have certainly thought about it and discussed
I mean,
it.
we've had challenges that incorporated that to a certain extent.
Mhm.
I mean,
We
it's,
had, what was it, tag 2, tag 3, where Sam had to
Yeah.
find the town hall without looking at any maps.
Oh,
And we have some hide and seek stuff, right?
yeah, there have been curses that
yeah, I don't know if those have ever actually come up, but they definitely exist. Where...
This happened to you in Capture the Flag once.
That's true.
Oh.
Yeah, I got cursed in Capture the Flag, and I couldn't use my phone.
I just love that you'll have got to the point that I've got with my videos, which is you just forget huge swathes of
Yeah.
what you've done.
Yeah.
Someone will say,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, it's like that time you." Is it? I'm sure. Guess that was a thing I said once.
Yeah. I think, sorry, go ahead, Sam. Go ahead.
Well, we've certainly discussed this as a game element for broader games. I think that, we have certainly not counted it out or decided to do it. And we have not gone in one direction or the other. But I think the challenges that we've run into in the past with it is that it, in most good instances, requires sort of an administration role, at least to fit in a game that like we do, which is not to say we can't have an administration role. It's just not really one that we have had as much. Of course, you could argue that like in this season, we kind of had it more than we've ever had with Amy. Yeah, it's certainly one that we're intrigued with, but have not, I think, fully solved how to do it well.
I mean,
Yeah, I think go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
we at the very least, like, the essence of that is something that we value a lot. Like, the more that we can make something feel like it's happening just in the real world, just with, like, anytime we can use a physical map or a real departure board or anything like that, like, we love that and we love the essence of that. And so, like, while it might be really difficult to do a game where it's like you can't use your phones or the internet at all, like, we have been trying our best to make games where at the very least, like, you're not having these segments where you sit down and look at your phone for 3 hours and figure something out that's just completely digital and then you explain it. Like, as to whatever degree we can keep things rooted in, like, what's the next train out of this station that I'm at currently, like, that, I think, I think you can capture a lot of the essence of that without actually going all the way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, like, I think that the other thing we've run into, part of why it's difficult for us, is that, like, trying to navigate without your phone is one of those things where, well, there's two elements of this. One, it's something where I think it's either, it has the propensity to occasionally be either impossible or too easy in instances. Like, if you're trying to build it in a lot, it's like, okay, well, especially if you're doing it on public transit. Like, let's say we were in Japan and we were trying to do this on public transit. It's like, okay, well, the truth is, once you find a train station, you just follow the thing that says towards Tokyo, and that's going to be written in English. And you're going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to make it up half the country, no problem, because I found that, I walked to the train station because there were signs, and then now I'm at the train station, and now, okay, well, I found the one to Tokyo, and I'm just going to ride that guy all the way up. So it's like, well, it becomes too easy at a certain point, and you have to, there are game mechanic solutions to that, but they can be tricky. And I think the second thing is, like, the idea of just we're navigating without a map, even if you do it, Ludwig, I think that the nice solution to this is, well, don't use trains, use a motorcycle, make it so that you have to deal with the roads, ban highways, which I thought was smart for them to do, some design in there. But it's like, what Ludwig did is it's really a travelogue with a fun element to it, right? I think that I think he did a really nice job, and I think it's a really fun series. I think it's also quite different from what we do, right? Although I certainly will take that. I think perhaps he was a little bit inspired by jet lag. I think also it's pretty differentiated. It's not really a game. It's a journey. It's an experience that is facilitated by an interesting set of parameters. What we are doing is pretty different. So we would have to develop a game where you are navigating without your phone, but there's a whole other layer of gameplay we would have to build on top of that. And I think that the uncertainty that's created by navigating without a phone makes it a really unstable base to try to build a whole game on top of. And I think that's part of why we've found difficulty with trying to develop a format that really relies on that.
I would also just, in addition to everything y'all have said, it's so country specific to do that, because the whole time y'all were talking, I was like, you could do that in India, but because the maps and if you see an address and how they write it in India, it would say near this store, across the street from this other store. That's literally an official address. So technically you could look at it on a map, but the best way to get around in India, if you is talking to people and getting that one-to-one, so it could work there, but in a densely populated area. But trying to get on a train in India is impossible. In Mumbai, sorry, that's what I know, so let me speak in I statements. But that would be comical, and you would never get on the actual train.
Yeah, the trouble with India is the filming laws there. To my understanding, it's pretty tough.
No, it would be wild. Hilarious to watch, but would not recommend. Don't come for me, Indians. We know what our country is. Anyway.
Tom, you've played jet lag now. I won't speak for Sam, Adam, or Ben, but if you were asked back, would you be willing to play again?
Yes, depends on the game and time and everything like that. I don't think any of us are ever going to promise anything like that. As like I said at the start, as far as I'm concerned, this is my last official jet lag duty, is being on here, and it is off to whoever the guests for seasons 16 and 17 and onwards are. Assuming you're going to do seasons 16 and 17 and onwards.
Well, listen, Tom, somebody needs to break through the glass ceiling of men being paired with Sam on jet lag.
Boo! Get out of here, Taran.
Everyone just forgets about Brian for that.
I know. It's 2.5.
Brian season 1.
But
Tom,
listen,
if you were
100 women, but women win jet lag, what does that mean?
Well, I'm too intimidated by their strength. That's why
Fair.
Tom, if you were to come back, what out of all the seasons that we've done, if you could choose any, which one would it be?
I think I said this at the start, that my two favourite seasons were New Zealand for the travelogue aspect and just the sheer beauty of the place, and some of that game design, and Battle for America. And what I basically got was a combination of those. You could not have invited me onto a more perfect season for that.
Except
I think
for maybe summer.
That's what I was about to say. I think Sam's
No,
perfect season
honestly,
of jet lag would have been the
14
season
hours.
he did in the spring.
14 hours, man. That's a long game day. That's a really long game day.
Yeah.
We're putting
I
Tom
don't
in
think we
the
would ever have done
blender.
that, but we do. I think these days we default to 12, and only certain games really justify the 14.
Tom, I had also similar question where what would your ideal advice be for a guest to come on with example be Michelle with her spreadsheets, right, and her multiple routes and all of that work. What would you say as a fan now that has come on to the other side?
Take any chance for downtime that you have. Like, it is really, really easy to get stuck in, have to plan this, have to plan this, have to plan this. Like, and I've had this with videos I used to make as well. Like, you have to stop at some point and look out the window and go, oh, this is a game and this is fun and you don't need to plan it. Like, just occasionally turn off the cameras and have a look out the window.
Yeah. Although, if you had gone to that, what was it, bike dispensary?
Right? Yeah. Yeah, to be clear, not when there is a game-breaking decision that could happen because of this.
Just when you're on a train, maybe, yeah.
Like, there's a reason I stopped to look out the panorama car window, you know?
That was a very cool train.
I do think, in my point of view, this is genuinely one of the things that the guests seem to like learn through time, which is like, I think almost every guest I've played with, they come in, they go like super hard, burn themselves out on day one, and then get a little bit kind of tired, and then sort of like learn the pacing a little bit more as they go on, because just practically it's like you can certainly attempt to nail every single decision 100% of the time right from the get-go and give it every single bit of info you can possibly gather to make it the best decision possible, and you certainly should try for that, but you kind of have to accept that like sometimes you're not going to be able to do literally every piece of research and nail literally every single element of every decision, and that's part of what makes the game good.
I do think, you have to pick your moments a little bit. Like, there are times when that you have to lock in. And when those moments are there, you got to lock in. But if you try to stay locked in the whole time, you're going to completely run out of juice.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a lot of it is about actually, figuring out where to apply that attention and energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Sasha, any other questions?
No, that was it.
Anything else that you guys want to say about the season?
And anything to look forward to.
Well, yeah, we should ask about season 13.5.
We've thanked Tom enough on our podcast. I think he got uncomfortable, so we won't do too much more.
Yeah,
no, but I wasn't there. Wait, I wasn't there. Wait, I get to
so
do it.
Adam can shower him with thanks.
Yes. Okay. No, I'll be normal about it. But
Thank you.
I'll
That'll
say
be nice. But
I'm gonna do it. You have to put up with a little bit, but I'm gonna be regular about it. I'll say that, Tom, you have long been, I think, at least in my mind, I can only speak in I statements, perhaps the person I was most excited to have on jet lag. Well, actually, I'll even go back further. I'll even make you more uncomfortable. I remember when I first met you, we had just launched jet lag, and I met you at VidCon several years ago. And I remember we were at this party, and Ben and I were like, "Oh my God, that's Tom Scott."
Don't make it weird.
And we were nervous to meet you, and you very kindly came up to us and congratulated us on jet lag. And that was a big moment for us of being like, oh my God, like maybe jet lag is good. Like if Tom Scott thinks that it's good, like, man, like maybe it really is legit. Like maybe we did a good job here. So
I am not even going to sarcastically dismiss that. I'll just take the compliment and move on.
The full circle moment of having you on the show was very cool, and you did.
And likewise, and I'm going to blatant plug in here. Having you all on Lateral was lovely as well. There was another episode coming out with Jetlag Crew at some point, and I'm going to put the plug in. It's at lateralcast.com. There we go.
Yeah.
That's my producer happy.
Tom, I have been I have you to blame for my lack of audiobook listening for the past like 2 months because I've been binging Lateral backwards.
Isn't it good? I listen to Lateral. It's really good.
It's good.
It's very
You can also watch it now. Full episodes are on Spotify. There we go. I've got the full plug in.
It's very fun to like hear guests a bunch and then get to their introduction episode because I'm going backwards. But it's a very fun podcast, very fun to have on, asking trivia questions and feeling like I would do terribly at it because I have one thought, nobody ever says it, and then eventually it's someone says something that disproves it, and I'm like, oh, I guess it wasn't that thought. But very fun stuff. Check out the Lateral podcast for sure.
Thank you.
And season 13.5 of Jetlag the Game coming out a week from now on Nebula?
Well,
I think first episode in 2 days.
2 days.
2 days.
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
it's on
this week.
Wednesday.
Oh my God, where's the time gone?
We're recording this on a Monday, so it comes out on a Wednesday.
That's very exciting. Any teases? What was the impetus behind this?
Well, Tom got sick.
Yeah, we had a little extra time with Tom sick. So we filmed a little bonus thing.
So whoever poisoned Tom, we have them to thank for season 13.5.
But that's
The
not a
impetus
promise
was-
every time. Don't poison our guests just to get a little bonus season.
No, they'll
Doesn't
just
work
poison
every
me
time.
anyway.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Well, then maybe.
Don't eat waffles. That's what we know.
What can we say? I think that we were all we were all pleased with how interesting the gameplay turned out to be.
Yeah.
I think that it is just as compelling as any hide and seek, episodes we've put out. And
Agreed.
I think, the fact that you can do that just in New York City, I think speaks to how fun the game is and how fun it could be for you to purchase and play wherever
Such
you
a good
live.
idea. You should buy it. Yeah, it's a fun little two-parter. And I feel like there's been a lot of confusion about this, so I want to make it very clear. This mini-season is not causing a delay of Season 14. Season 14 is coming. This is just a little bonus for you. So
Have you
don't
mentioned
worry
it's a
about it.
two-parter before now? Because I didn't know it was a two-parter.
It's a two-parter.
It's a two-parter.
It has, I believe, been revealed that it's a
Yeah, I
wonderful
think on the
two-parter.
layover.
Yeah.
I need to know how you pick the teams.
Yes, that was going to be my question.
Maybe is that part of the show?
I think that it was a fun opportunity to split up me and Ben in something that isn't a full season. I think a lot of people have said for a while, like, it'd be interesting to see Adam and Ben split up and be on different teams. And it was just like, well, for this thing, which is kind of like non-canon, like it's not really part of the regular run of the series, it's a fun opportunity to be like, oh, let's mix things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, anything else to plug from you guys? Season 14 coming up.
I
Layover.
feel like we've plugged a lot, honestly.
Yeah. I can only plug so much.
Plugs.
All right, well, that's what we have then. Thank you so much for joining us, talking about season 13. I really enjoyed it, and I'm very excited to see all of the seasons to come, including the half seasons. I'm very excited to listen to more Layover podcast. Very excited to listen to more Lateral podcast. And in the meantime, check us out here at RHAP. We're doing lots of coverage of lots of things. I do lots of scripted coverage as well. I'm going to record about The Last of Us right after this. We've got a podcast called The Tastemakers, where we are the Tom Scotts of television and film, and we decide what is good and bad. So check that out. Because you were the confirmation that jet lag was good.
Thank you. I should have probably picked up on that
That
reference,
makes
really,
sense.
shouldn't I? That, yeah.
No, I was also confused about where you were going with that.
Glad.
And I was the one who said it.
And all kinds of other stuff. You can find me on YouTube and Twitch. Sasha, how about you?
Yeah, of course. We just wrapped up Daredevil coverage over on We Know Scripted TV. Such a good first season. I think Marvel TV is back, baby? Question mark. Great season. So would recommend to watch and then check out Jason and my coverage. And of course, if you care about pop culture, celebrity mess, anything ridiculous, check out Mess Magnets over on messmagnets.com, where Kirsten and I are covering everything trending.
All right. Well, that is what we have for you then today. Thank you all so much for joining us here talking about Jetlag, the game season 13. And we will see all of you, hopefully, next time for season 13.5.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.